The Marked Sovereign. The palace of Umbrath stood like a crown of obsidian against the perpetual twilight sky, its spires reaching toward stars that never fully appeared. Within its shadowed halls, Princess Thalia Meridian moved like a ghost through her own home, her presence announced only by the whisper of silk against marble floors. She paused before the mirror in her private chambers, candlelight flickering across features she had learned to despise. The silver veins spread across her face in intricate patterns, branching from her temples down to her jaw like fractured lightning frozen in skin. They glowed faintly in the dim light, beautiful and terrible all at once. "My lady, your evening meal," came the voice of her attendant, Mira, from beyond the door. The girl would not enter without permission. None of them would. "Leave it outside," Thalia replied, her voice steady despite the familiar ache in her chest. The affliction had come 3 years ago, on the night someone had tried to kill her. The poison had failed to stop her heart, but had left its mark in ways far more devastating. The court physicians called it a miracle she had survived. Thalia sometimes wondered if death would have been kinder. She moved to her balcony, where the desert stretched endlessly beneath twin moons. The silver dunes rolled like frozen waves, serene and isolated, much like herself. Tomorrow she would don her veils again and sit in council, issuing decrees from behind screens of delicate metalwork. Her people would bow, would obey, would fear. Always fear. Even her own cousin Cassian, who smiled with too many teeth and waited like a vulture for her to falter. "They look at me and see a curse," she whispered to the night wind. "A queen who cannot show her face, a woman no one could ever love." The wind offered no comfort, carrying only the scent of distant spice markets and the mechanical hum of the city below. Somewhere in that sprawl of lights, people lived normal lives. They touched without hesitation. They loved without shame. Thalia pressed her fingertips to the cool glass patterns on her cheek, tracing the routes the poison had burned into her flesh. The veins were warm to the touch, always warm, as though something still lived beneath them. She retreated inside, drawing the curtains against the night. Tomorrow she would wear her armor of fabric and protocol. Tonight she allowed herself to grieve for the life she would never have, the touch she would never feel, the love she was certain would never find her in this beautiful, terrible darkness.
The Traveler's Arrival. The diplomatic landing pad hummed with activity as the Earth vessel descended through Umbrath's hazy atmosphere. Thalia watched from her tower window, veiled, as always, as foreign dignitaries emerged from the sleek silver ship. Protocol demanded she greet important visitors personally, but she had long ago delegated such duties to her ministers. Yet something compelled her to look, to wonder what brought humans so far from their distant blue world. "The trade envoy requests an audience with you directly, Your Highness," her advisor, Chancellor Varen, announced, bowing deeply without meeting her eyes. "He insists it must be with you alone." Thalia's fingers tightened on the windowsill. "That's highly irregular." "He was quite adamant, a human named Rowan Ashford. He says he carries proposals that only the sovereign should hear first." She considered refusing, but curiosity won. "Tonight, in the Moon Garden, I will meet him there." As dusk settled, Thalia arranged herself behind an ornate screen in the garden's heart, where night-blooming flowers released their intoxicating perfume. She heard footsteps approaching, measured, unhurried, and a figure appeared on the garden path. Rowan Ashford was tall and lean, with dark hair touched by silver at the temples, despite his relatively young face. He wore simple traveler's clothes rather than formal diplomatic attire, and his eyes scanned the garden with genuine appreciation rather than the calculated assessment she expected. "Princess Thalia," he said, bowing toward the screen. Thank you for seeing me. You requested this audience. Speak your business, Envoy Ashford. Rowan, please. His voice carried warmth that seemed out of place in formal negotiations. I've traveled 6 months to reach Umbrath. Your world's unique mineral deposits could revolutionize our medical technologies, but I wanted to understand your people before proposing any trade. And what have you understood? Thalia asked, intrigued despite herself. That you hide? He said simply. Not just you, but this entire world, behind veils and twilight, and customs designed to keep others at arm's length. Her breath caught. You overstep. Perhaps, but I didn't travel across the galaxy for polite lies. He moved closer to the screen, and she could see his eyes now, warm brown, searching. I've read about your condition, Princess. The failed assassination, the court's superstitious fear. Then you understand why I remain behind this barrier. I understand fear. I don't share it. Before she could respond, a sudden gust of wind swept through the garden, Umbrath's notorious thermal currents that appeared without warning. Her veil lifted, twisted, and torn from its pins. Thalia gasped, raising her hands to her face, but it was too late. The fabric drifted away like a ghost, leaving her exposed in the garden's soft light. Rowan stepped around the screen. She turned away instinctively, shame flooding through her. Don't look at me. But he approached slowly, stopping just within arm's reach. Thalia. The use of her name without title made her pause. Please, he said softly. Let me see you. Every instinct screamed to flee, to hide, to call the guards and banish this presumptuous human. But something in his voice, a gentleness she hadn't heard in years, made her slowly turn back. His eyes widened as he took in her face, the silver veins that glowed faintly in the moonlight. She waited for the familiar expressions, horror, disgust, pity. Instead, Rowan smiled, not a polite diplomatic smile, but something genuine and wondering. He raised one hand, hesitating. May I? Confused, she nodded. His fingertips brushed her cheek, tracing one luminous line with infinite care. His touch was warm, reverent. Extraordinary, he breathed, like captured starlight beneath your skin. Thalia's heart hammered against her ribs. No one had touched her face since the poisoning. No one had looked at her with anything but fear. You're not afraid? She whispered. Afraid? Rowan's thumb traced along her jaw and she shivered. I'm captivated.
Whispered truths. The following days passed in a blur of stolen moments. Rowan attended formal trade discussions during the day, but each evening he found his way to Thalia's private quarters, ostensibly to discuss diplomatic matters, but truly for the conversation that flowed between them like water finding its course. Tonight, they sat on her balcony, overlooking the silver dunes, the city lights twinkling below like earthbound stars. Thalia had abandoned her veils in his presence, a liberation that still felt dangerously vulnerable. Tell me about Earth, she said, tucking her legs beneath her on the cushioned bench. Your oceans. I've only seen them in hollows. Rowan leaned against the railing, his profile strong against the twilight. Vast. Powerful. The first time I saw the Atlantic, I was 7. My father took me to the coast, and I remember thinking the water went on forever. He turned to her, smiling. But Umbrath's deserts have their own kind of infinity. A lonelier one, Thalia said quietly. He moved to sit beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. You don't have to be lonely. Don't I? The words escaped before she could stop them. Look at me, Rowan. Truly look. This isn't just unusual skin or an exotic feature. People see me and think of poison, assassination, death. They see a curse walking. Then they're fools. She laughed bitterly. Even my own cousin can barely stand to be in my presence. Cassian manages it only because he wants my throne. I've met Lord Cassian, Rowan said, his tone cooling. Ambitious man. Watches you like a predator waiting for weakness. He's been patient. waiting for me to step down, to marry someone who could rule in my place. She traced one silver vein with her finger. But who would take a bride who terrifies children, who makes grown warriors flinch? Rowan caught her hand, stilling it. His fingers intertwined with hers, and the simple intimacy of it made her chest tighten. Thalia, listen to me. I've been to 40 worlds. I've seen beauty in 1,000 forms. Crystalline beings on Proxima 4, the color-shifting peoples of Kepler's crown. Humans of every variation Earth could produce. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent electricity racing up her arm. And never, he continued, his eyes holding hers, have I encountered anyone who moves me the way you do. My face terrifies them, she whispered, the confession breaking from somewhere deep and wounded. Rowan released her hand only to cup her face between his palms, his thumbs gentle against the glowing veins. To me, you're the universe's greatest beauty. The words shattered something in her chest. Tears she had forbidden herself for 3 years suddenly welled and spilled, tracking down her cheeks. Rowan wiped them away with his thumbs, his touch impossibly tender. I don't understand, she breathed. How can you? Because I see you, not the marks, not the princess, you. The woman who rules with wisdom beyond her years, who tends a garden in the middle of a desert, who reads poetry in 4 languages and laughs at terrible jokes, who's been brave enough to survive something that should have killed her and strong enough to carry that survival alone. Thalia's breath hitched. Rowan! He leaned forward slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she didn't, when she instead tilted her face up to his, he closed the distance. The kiss was soft at first, questioning. His lips moved against hers with a gentleness that made her ache. She responded hesitantly, then with growing confidence, her hands finding their way to his shoulders. Rowan's arms circled her waist, drawing her closer. The kiss deepened, and Thalia felt something she'd thought forever lost. Desire, connection, the simple human need to be held and wanted. When they finally parted, both breathless, Rowan rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight, she whispered. Just stay. Always, he promised, and drew her back into his arms as the twin moons rose higher, bathing them in silver light.
Shadows of betrayal. The palace awakened to scandal. Thalia had been discreet, or so she believed, but palace walls had ears and eyes loyal to those who paid well. Lord Cassian sat in his chambers, fingers steepled beneath his chin, as his spy delivered the news he'd been waiting for. The human envoy spent the entire night in her quarters, my lord. They were seen on the balcony, embracing. Cassian's smile was sharp as broken glass. Perfect. The people already fear her cursed appearance. Now their princess consorts with an outsider. He stood, smoothing his elaborate robes. Summon the council of nobles. It's time Thalia faced her people. 3 days later, Thalia stood in her dressing chamber, her hands trembling as Mira fastened the clasps of her ceremonial gown. The message had been clear. Her presence was required at the Grand Assembly. All nobles, all citizens of rank. No screens, no veils permitted, an ancient law she'd successfully avoided invoking until now. You don't have to do this, Rowan said from the doorway. He'd barely left her side since the summons arrived. Cassian's made it a challenge to my authority. If I hide now, I prove every whisper about my weakness true. She met his eyes in the mirror. Besides, I'm tired of hiding. You've shown me that much. He crossed to her, pressing a kiss to her temple. Then I stand with you. The great hall fell silent as Thalia entered, Rowan at her side. Hundreds of faces turned toward her. Nobles in their finery, merchants, guild leaders, military commanders. She saw the reactions ripple through the crowd. Shock, fear, disgust, fascination. The silver veins on her face seemed to glow brighter under their scrutiny, catching the light from 1,000 candles. Cassian stood at the center, his expression triumphant. "Citizens of Umbrath, behold your princess, she who has hidden herself away while I have worked tirelessly for our prosperity." "I have hidden nothing that matters," Thalia said, your voice carrying through the hall. "I have ruled justly and well." "Ruled?" Cassian laughed. "You issue decrees from shadows while our people suffer your curse with fear, and now you bring shame upon our house by bidding an alien envoy before any formal union?" Gasps echoed through the assembly. Rowan's hand tightened on hers, but she squeezed back, a silent message to let her fight this battle. "My personal affairs are not yours to judge, cousin. When our princess parades her deformity and her foreign lover before us, it becomes everyone's concern." Cassian gestured dramatically. "Look at her. The poison left her marked, cursed. She should have abdicated years ago." "The only curse here is your ambition," Thalia shot back. "You've waited like a carrion bird for me to fail." "I've waited for you to see reason." Cassian's facade cracked, showing real anger beneath. "Step aside gracefully, Thalia. Let someone unmarked lead our people." "Never!" The word rang with finality. Thalia stepped forward, releasing Rowan's hand and walking into the center of the assembly alone. The crowd parted, people shrinking back from her proximity. "I am your princess," she declared, turning slowly so all could see her face. "These marks are not a curse. They're proof I survived what should have killed me. Proof that I am stronger than those who wish me harm." Her gaze found Cassian. "Proof that some poisons are survived, while others corrupt from within." The implications hung heavy in the air. Cassian's face flushed. "How dare you suggest—" "I suggest nothing. I accuse." Thalia produced a small vial from her sleeve, the evidence her personal guard had discovered that morning. "This poison was found in Envoy Ashford's quarters, the same compound that marked my face 3 years ago. Tell me, cousin, how did it find its way there?" The color drained from Cassian's face. "I know nothing of this." "Your servant was seen entering his rooms, the same servant who attended me the night of my own poisoning. Did you think I wouldn't eventually piece it together? That you orchestrated my assassination and, when it failed, have spent years waiting to finish what you started?" Chaos erupted. Nobles shouted. Guards moved forward. Rowan backed away, his hand dropping to the ceremonial blade at his waist. "Lies! Desperate lies from a cursed woman who would sell our world to aliens." Rowan moved then, faster than Thalia expected, intercepting Cassian as he lunged toward her. They grappled, Cassian's blade flashing. It caught Rowan's shoulder, drawing blood, but Rowan's training held. He disarmed the Lord with a precise strike and drove him to his knees. The guards surrounded them, weapons drawn. Thalia stood over her cousin, breathing hard, her heart racing. "You are banished from Umbrath, cousin, effective immediately. Your lands are forfeit, your title stripped. Be grateful I grant you your life, which is more mercy than you showed me." As guards hauled Cassian away, still protesting his innocence, Thalia turned to face the assembly. The nobles watched her with new eyes, not just fear now, but respect, tinged with uncertainty. "I will no longer hide," she announced. "I am marked, yes, but I am not cursed, and I am not ashamed." She extended her hand toward Rowan, who took it despite the blood staining his sleeve. "This man sees my worth. Do you?" The silence stretched. Then slowly, old General Kress stepped forward and knelt. "My princess, my queen." One by one, others followed.
Radiance unveiled. The week following Cassian's exile transformed Umbrath in ways Thalia had never imagined possible. Without her cousin's poisonous whispers spreading through the court, people began to see their princess differently. Or perhaps, they began to see her truly for the first time. She walked the palace corridors unveiled now, and while some still flinched, others met her gaze with curiosity rather than fear. Children in the market square stared openly, but when she smiled at them, some smiled back. "You're becoming a symbol," Rowan said one evening as they reviewed the formal union documents her advisors had prepared. His shoulder was healing well, bound in regenerative bandages from his ship's medical bay. "Of what?" Thalia asked, setting down her pen. "Resilience, survival, the courage to be seen." He moved behind her chair, his hands settling on her shoulders, kneading gently. "Your people are starting to understand what I knew the moment I saw you, that strength comes in unexpected forms." She leaned back into his touch, still marveling at how natural it felt to be touched without hesitation. "The council approved our bonding ceremony, next month, during the convergence of moons." "Nervous?" "Terrified," she admitted. "The entire planet will watch." "Good. Let them see what love looks like when it's real." The night of the ceremony arrived with Umbrath's rare celestial event, when all three of the planet's moons aligned perfectly, bathing the world in cascading silver light. The palace gardens had been transformed into a wonderland of luminescent flowers, their petals echoing the glow of Thalia's marked face. She stood before the assembled crowd in a gown of midnight blue, her hair woven with silver thread, her face bare and radiant. No veils, no screens, just herself, wholly visible. Rowan waited at the ceremonial arch, dressed in traditional Umbrath formal wear that blended his human heritage with her world's customs. His eyes found hers across the distance, and his smile was pure sunlight. The high priestess began the ancient words, but Thalia barely heard them. All her focus was on Rowan, on the journey that had brought them here, from fear to acceptance, from isolation to love. "Do you, Princess Thalia Meridian, pledge your heart to this union, forsaking shadows for shared light?" "I do," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the garden. "And do you, Rowan Ashford of Earth, pledge your heart to this union, accepting all that she is without reservation?" Rowan stepped forward, taking her hands. "Every single part," he said, his thumbs tracing the silver veins along her wrists. "Every mark, every scar, every beautiful piece. I do." The priestess bound their hands with silver cord. "Then, before the three moons and these witnesses, I declare you bonded in love and in life." The crowd erupted in celebration, genuine joy that echoed through the gardens. Rowan drew Thalia close and kissed her deeply, and for the first time in 3 years, she didn't care who was watching. Later, in the privacy of their chambers, Thalia stood at the window overlooking the celebration continuing in the city below. Rowan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "No regrets?" he murmured against her neck. She turned in his embrace, her hands sliding up his chest to rest against his shoulders. "Only that I wasted so much time being afraid. You weren't ready before." He cupped her face, tilting it up to his. "We find love when we're meant to." Thalia kissed him slowly, pouring 3 years of loneliness and longing into the contact. Rowan responded with matching intensity, walking her backward toward the bed draped in silver silk. His hands traced reverent paths down her spine, finding the fastenings of her gown. "Beautiful," he whispered, as the fabric pooled at her feet. "Every inch of you." She reached for him in turn, fingers trembling slightly as she undressed him. When they came together skin to skin, the silver veins across her body seemed to pulse with inner light, responding to her racing heartbeat. Rowan laid her back against the pillows, his touch gentle but purposeful, learning the landscape of her body with the same attention he'd given to learning her mind. When he finally moved over her, into her, Thalia gasped at the completeness of it, not just physical union, but emotional, spiritual, the joining of two souls who had found each other across impossible distance. They moved together in the moonlight, whispered endearments and promises tangling with breathless pleasure. When Thalia shattered in his arms, Rowan followed moments later, her name a prayer on his lips. Afterwards they lay entwined, watching the 3 moons slowly separate in the sky beyond their window. "What happens now?" Thalia asked, tracing lazy patterns on his chest. "Now we build something new, a bridge between worlds. You've already changed Umbrath. Imagine what we could do together across the galaxy." Thalia smiled, feeling hope bloom in her chest, bright and warm and real. "Together," she echoed, and knew with absolute certainty that she would never hide in shadows again. The silver veins on her face glowed softly in the darkness, not marks of a curse, but symbols of survival, of strength, of a beauty that transcended conventional standards. And in Rowan's arms, surrounded by love freely given and joyfully received, Thalia fondly understood what she'd whispered to the night wind all those months ago was wrong. She wasn't unlovable. She had simply been waiting for someone brave enough to see beyond fear to the woman beneath. She had been waiting for him.